been consistently the top jungler in the league. Not necessarily a positive win rate, but certainly a popular pick. And now for LGD, we need to see where they go, because I want to see proactivity out of this mid lane, right? The Lee Sin is great for Shadow. I'd love to see something like an Ahri for Haicho.
Yeah, I think taking something like the Ahri is probably your best bet here, because Haicho, as we said, like, I think he's been really, really good when he gets on towards these more like roam and facilitating champions like we saw with the Galio, but we'll have to see what the plan's going to be. JinJiao going to take the Nautilus there instead, so kind of taking that away from Cold, because as we said, OMG like to lean, or at least to look best when they lean into these more dive-oriented compositions, and Nautilus enables that incredibly well.
Yeah, and you know, when we looked at the clips of them playing earlier on, like, it was this Lee Sin and Nautilus combo alongside Haicho's Galio that looked so good. We'll see if that Galio is going to come out alongside it as well. But over to the side of Abel, we get the Zeri locked in, and let's be honest, Zeri, very short range AD carry, fits this style beautifully for them. With a Braum in there as well, so you can just proc those stuns like nothing. It's going to be pretty aggressive from the side of OMG, pretty short range once again. The Jinx there for us.
And I think that's why I was kind of surprised to see the Zeri wasn't locked in over on the side of LGD. Like, Zeri's such a strong pick at the moment, especially when you look at her ability to play both poke because of the changes to her W, where it can crit and can deal a whole heap of damage, but also just the fact she can play with dive. She's great in team fights because of her speed up. Like, she kind of is a heavy hitter all round, while also being one of the strongest AD carries in the patch. But it looks like LGD wanted to kind of bait this one out, go towards the Jinx, and have Assum, as you say, on that late game scaler.
Exactly, yeah. Building up for the late game. Assum being the one to kind of be the main damage dealer for the team, while the rest of the team is playing like either body blocking or distraction. Feels like there are a couple of options. And honestly, when it comes to talking about that style, I'm really curious if LGD can make that happen consistently. We'll find out today. I won't go too much into the narratives right now as we're in Champ Select, but 3 mid lane bans here. 4 of you include the Silas from the first phase. We'll see what OMG are going to go for next, but we could have a pretty interesting mid lane matchup here. Things like Swain's still available.
Yeah, and I'm also looking at things like maybe a Twisted Fate here for Haicho as well, because you've already got like the Silas Band Away, which is a great one. The Galio is a great answer to it. Even things like the Ahri can do relatively well. It feels like maybe they're trying to say, hey, we want to try and go this more global style, especially when you look at the Jinx on the bottom side. You can try and lean in towards that, but instead we might be just getting a bog standard scaling here for LGD, with they're going to go towards this Azir.
Yeah, with the Corki being banned as well, would make sense, but maybe not. We'll have to see. LGD could go for a different solo lane. I would expect the mid lane. Like, usually you want to go for the counter pickup in that top side. Looks like they are going to agree to go for that in the end. Haicho with his first Azir game of the LPL.
Yeah, and it looks like you're just going to answer with the Viktor here. So I think for LGD, they've definitely got a ton of scaling options here, and going to be able to fairly easy, it feels like, getting towards that late game portion of the game as well. Like, there's not anyone on OMG where I'm looking going, oh yeah, you're terrifying in the early stages, especially if they lock in this Viktor. And okay, yeah, so they're actually going to go towards Sejuani on the top side, but I still think here, like, you don't really have a terrifying early game on OMG side. So I think from LGD, kind of just correctly identifying that with the Quirky Band Away, there's nothing that can really have the hyper scaling. Maybe they go towards the Zoe here and try and play poke for OMG, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be pretty slow early game, looking towards that late game instead.
Mate, slam a Xerath. That's what I say. Xerath annihilates Azir in lane. I'm just saying, come on, Creme. No, okay, Viktor. Well, not that surprising, really. Viktor Azir is a fairly standard matchup, right? You can get a bit of poke damage in, and we'll see where Fearness goes. Fearness has been very much a weak side top laner, right? That has been the story of Fearness so far this split. And something like a Mordekaiser, where he can find that isolated one, can protect himself from dives, certainly will tick that box.
Yeah, and I mean, at the moment, I'm kind of just looking at both these lineups going, we're going to have 0 happening in the early stages, so Fearness should be able to kind of nicely bully Shanji in that top side. I mean, you've just got, like, ping-pong lanes in mid lane, so not going to be too much happening there. You look at the bot side as well. You do have some ability to try and, like, work with Abel in the early stage. You should have pushed in that lane, but the biggest problem you're seeing is that Cold is on the Braum, so you don't really even have a lane there you can really do much for. So I'd be curious to see what Shadow can achieve in this early stage, as I feel like the Lee Sin should have the advantage in the matchup to maybe look for some plays, but it's not looking like it's going to be too hotly contested early game with all this late game in it.
Well, you say that, Dagda. I've seen crazier things before. Sometimes the teams of the LPL don't necessarily respect their own win conditions, don't necessarily respect their own composition. So it's possible that we still get craziness in the early game. But yeah, as you say, a lot of scaling on the board here. I do wonder for OMG, though, if that's going to work out for them. I feel like, you know, the composition from LGD wants to keep them at arm's length. It's like, what we set up earlier was for OMG, what's worked is getting really deep, going as aggressive as possible during these fights. And it's going to be a question of execution, whether or not they can make that happen, whether or not they can get into that backline. But the Sejuani certainly will help with just giving them that hard engage to start those fights off with.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest gripe that I've had with OMG is that, like, they haven't really shown that they have a decent understanding of how to play side lanes on the map. Their target selection in team fights has been off, and honestly, their team fighting in general hasn't been phenomenal. So I think coming into this game against LGD, where we are definitely looking at late game fights, and honestly a bit of an easier to... well, actually, I think both sides kind of have ease of execution. I'm curious to see how OMG are going to do, especially if Assum, with the range that he has, is just able to play in the back line and keep himself safe.
Yeah, we'll see if Assum can stay safe, as you say. And because quite often JinJiao doesn't feel like, you know, we're talking about Assum and JinJiao. It doesn't feel like these guys are like your big 2v2 necessarily in the bottom lane. They're both good players, but it feels like Assum is often left alone while JinJiao gets out of that lane. And I wonder if that'll be a similar theme in team fights where JinJiao is having to be that hard engaged. Because look at the team from LGD, right? He really is the only engage tool. That often can mean that Jinx gets left alone at the back of the fight. So potential opportunities for players like Aki to find opportunities onto Assum.
How dare you disrespect Haichou's Azir? He could be a phenomenal engage tool. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But I do agree. I think the majority of it is up to JinJiao. And I've kind of been a bit hit or miss on teams that, like, heavily rely on the Nautilus as an engage tool. Because you are only that, like, single target CC. So, yes, you can help make one pick happen. That can be a good way to start off the fight. But say you end up, like, jumping onto someone like Abel, who's then able to hop away, or Code is able to, like, jump in front and provide some disengage. Suddenly you're kind of out in the wind because you don't actually have any more tools to reset up the fight or re-engage the fight in the manner that you'd want. So I'm not the biggest fan of teams who just solely rely on this Nautilus, so I will actually be watching out for Haichou to see if he can kind of provide a secondary engage tool or a secondary setup for LGD. Even Shadow.
Yeah. Speaking of the Nautilus, level 2 hit, Cold hooked on in, low on HP as well. Couple more autos might do the trick. Ignite is ticking. I don't think it's enough. Cold will survive, but a good little 2v2 coming out from the LGD bottom lane. Yeah,
nicely done from Assum and JinJiao, and just Cold not respecting the level 2, and especially for JinJiao, who used to be an AD carry, trying to transition into that support role. He's starting slowly but surely to get used to his new role. I'm not going to lie, it's taken a while, and I won't say he's one of the best supports in the league, but certainly looking better than he had in years past.
I'd be surprised if he is one of the best supports in the league while he's freshly swapped over and currently 1 and 2 in the LPL. That would be a hell of a statement you'd be making right there of. But yeah, well, I have to see. He has been doing well when it comes to the roaming, though, right? When it comes to getting out of that bottom lane. So perhaps positives can come from that one. We'll have to wait and see. As Aki moving up to the top side here, wants to go for the Scuttle Crab. We've got a trade of junglers here as Shadow warding into the Tri-Brush at the bottom side, but I think the ward was noticed. He goes back to the Scuttle Crab instead. But Fearness might not be so lucky. Flashes away from the Flail of the North, but the stun lands. The Maw is there. The damage coming in. Everybody even dodges the... Oh! He's fine. I thought he was doomed. I was casting it like he was already dead.
Classic Mordekaiser. This is the problem. Like, even though he's not level 6, it can still be incredibly difficult to take down a Mordekaiser. He's just so beefy with the shield, the ability to kind of like pull you back, and even you can see there when it misses, Fearness is still able to escape. So flash burn for the Ghost on Shanji. TP as well for Fearness to get back into lane, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Aki try and make a quick repeat gank up here within, like, say, 2 minutes time.
Yep, as you say, Summoner's down. It's a perfect opportunity. Shanji doesn't have the Ghost, though, either, so it is a little bit more difficult to find that opportunity to start things off. And one of the weird things about this matchup, too, is as soon as you've used your little charge on Sejuani, well then Mordekaiser can just place his grab the opposite direction, push you away. So it can be a difficult one to stick onto Mordekaiser. We'll have to see though. Is Aki on the top side, but his camps are spawning is the problem. He's got to go to his wolves next. Probably won't want to go to the top.
Yeah, it definitely feels like Aki's trying to get in towards his top side again. Although, as I say that, he's moving bot because he still had his Krugs on the bottom side that he needs to clear. You can't do it off of this clear as he starts to move down, but it nerdy looked like he was going, okay, Fearness still has that wave to push out from the top side. Maybe I can get back up there, but just have to be aware that Shadow is also in that top side.
Yeah, Shadow on Krugs right now. Is Dragon going to spawn on the map? You see the beautiful little T-toes in the bottom left corner. But Dagda, you know, you mentioned that we might have a fairly slow early game, and I feel like we've got the epitome of that in the bottom side, right? Where both AD carries start with the cull. They knew this lane was not going to be a big aggressive one. They knew that this is going to be a chill lane. Shanji dodges the hook. He knows something's up. He knows that this is not a normal level of aggression from a Mordekaiser.
I got a little bit nervous when I saw him go back in, because you don't run a flash, and that's your escape tool, but we'll just back away. He hasn't reset yet, so happy to just take that quick leave. With the cannon wave as well that has just hit, I'm curious to see if he actually does TP back or just decide to walk back up, but yeah. I don't feel like there's going to be a huge amount of pressure in the early stage.
Oh, look at this. He's not even going up to the top lane. He's going towards the dragon right now, just using that priority to find space on the map here. And the rest of OMG going to confidently start this Drake off. I don't think Shanji's going to be needed. I don't think there's going to be any contest here for the side of LGD. Drake down to a K. Aki should be able to just finish this one off easy peasy as you like. Shanji not been spotted just yet, but I don't think OMG will find the fight they're looking for.
Yeah, this is the wave where Shanji would hit level 6, so the fact that he wasn't able to stick around actually will hit it off the mid wave there, but meant that he didn't have that ultimate available, so OMG just got to back away instead. Now Fearness setting up a nice little slow push for himself. Means that he should be able to get a nice reset in just before Rift Herald spawns in a minute and a half time. But overall, I like the map movement from Shanji, right? Understanding, hey, look, I didn't actually need to rush back to top side, so I'll just hold on to the TP. I'll try and play around bot side. Shadow trying to get onto Aki.
Yeah, good attempt there, but Aki dodges away from it. He'll be safe. And you know LGD's bottom lane aren't going to overextend on this one. I will say, Shanji sacrificing a good amount of CS. There should be a pretty fat wave for him there. But as you can see, 10 CS down off of the back of that roam. But the thing is, he's on Sejuani. So let's be honest. The CS numbers for Sejuani, really not that impactful. Like, it's all about your cooldowns. It's all about just getting some tank items and getting levels behind you. And you'll still have a huge impact.
Yeah, and the big thing about the Sejuani is just that engage tool, right? I mean, you look across at OMG, having Shanji being able to set up these fights is going to be so crucial. Cole can follow up with things like the Glacial Fissure, but you really are looking at that ultimate from the Sejuani to land to make sure you can actually set up these fights properly. Because if you end up missing that, it becomes a lot easier for like Haichao to position where he wants, Assum to play a lot more aggressive in fights, because there's very little other like dive or backline CC tools that you actually have available on OMG side.
Yeah, can be difficult for OMG if they can't find that engagement with Sejuani, like you say. And a lot of pressure going to be on Shanji. I love that we see that roam, though. You know, I love watching Shanji play. He's one of the more interesting top laners in the league. Like, he was bringing Rivershen to the table, or he just stayed in the bot lane Tribrush for the first 5 minutes of the game or something. Like, he was playing a ton of Rumble when he first came into the league. And now still showing that on the Sejuani, yeah, he's playing more meta, but still being creative, you know, still, like, just roaming down to Drake to guarantee that his team gets that. A little bit of a close one there for Abel. Dodges out, though. But love to see that creativity is still there for Shanji. And actually managing to close the CS gap somewhat. But I think there is a bit of a wave of Fearness on the mid.
Yeah, with that wave pushing in, though, OMG will move over and start to take this Rift Herald. Shadow on this bot side as well means that they're definitely going to know they're okay. But Shadow, maybe try to see if you can get some sort of insect play off. You even have Haichao on the way as well. And this is what we were talking about at the start of the day. Like, LGD trying to function more as a team and make plays together. Unfortunately, not able to find anything here, except for a red buff in lieu of the Rift Herald, but still nice to see that they're attempting to go for these plays.
Yeah, but also, like, even if they get the red buff, they also get pressure on the bottom side, right? Where Assum managed to get a plate for himself, almost getting towards that second plate as well. And crucially, that first plate was solo gold. As Aki now going to try and move up top side. You can see Fearness trying to clear the wave as fast as possible. Oh, he flashed in a straight line. But it won't matter. He's okay. The flail, not quite enough to lock him down. Aki spotted on the ward will back away. And it means all things considered, mildly positive trade for OMG with that Herald, assuming they get a couple of plates with it. But LGD at least going fairly even across things.
I mean, I'm kind of surprised we're still seeing that much pressure up towards the top side. Like, at this stage, Aki kind of had to re-gank before the level 6 was hit from Fearness. And even the flash back up now as well just means that there's just no real room to try and make plays up there. Because Fearness will just ult Shanji. Probably, maybe kill him if he ends up actually getting the play, to be honest. Or else he just runs back towards the turret when he has someone else ulted. So, it's not exactly like you have the easiest time here for OMG to actually make plays on this top side.
Yeah, it feels like one of those ones where, you know, Aki went up, blew the flash, didn't look top lane for a solid 5 minutes. So it's like, oh, Fearness flashes back up. Let's get back to the top lane. Fearness is flashed again. And now he's back at the bottom side of the map. So, you know, it is what it is. But, yeah, not quite optimal play from Aki, though. 40 seconds, though, Dagda, until the Drake comes in.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm really glad I just came off the weekend of LEC with that super long pause to come back to LPL, where we might as well have a super long pause for the amount of action that has been happening in this game. Like OMG have push on bot, they get vision control in river, they'll be able to get the dragon. Like, that's kind of the way this is going. Aki even having the Rift Herald here to try and get push in mid, but it's just like, all right, well, both teams have just kind of hand shook here and gone, yeah. Late game, see in the late game, yeah, I'm just gonna, you know, spend a bit of time shopping. I'll window shop a little bit, see what I like, see if there's any kind of new leather bags or anything that I want to pick up. But yeah, they're totally fine, just hanging out, chilling.
Yep, they're putting their feet up for now, except for Shanji, who's moving down towards the Drake once again. A TP coming out, in fact, double TP from the solo lanes of LGD. They don't want to let this Drake go without a fight, but they're too late to fight for the Drake. They can maybe fight afterwards. JinJiao goes in, Shadow with a kick. Oh, but it's denied by his own teammate, but there's Azir coming on in. Assum pounced on by OMG. It's pure chaos in the early game as Aki gets onto that backline, but Creme's totally alone. But he's doing big old damage, 3v3 now as Fearness charges on forward, but Aki stuck over the wall, ults away. It's a 2-for-2, a support and an AD carry versus AD carry and mid.
Yeah, but you still have Haichao who should be able to push in mid, so might be able to get some of these plates for himself. So at least LGD will get a little bit back, but overall, OMG, second dragon in their pockets. Some kills going towards Aki and Creme as well, going to be pretty nice. But we're just going to get the replay here where you can see the dragon has been started up. And, you know, have the TP coming through from Fearness to get down towards this play. But I think at this stage, like, LGD didn't really need to engage. And as you say, the Glacial Fissure denying Able going through the team, which was a nice play from Shadow. Assum as well, completely left on his lonesome on this backside. Means that OMG have to finish him off. But Creme gets a very similar treatment as both teams separate. And I think this is where you're starting to see some of the problems with both these teams in their team fighting, is that like the bloodlust takes over and no one kind of goes, oh yeah, we should, you know, hold on to our main damage dealer. But instead, they end up chasing down the opposite sides, carry, and both fall.
The funny thing was as well, like, it looked like Haichao got a really, really good Azir up there, like hitting multiple people, etc. But Assum was kind of alone at the back of the fight, and then Haichao just threw Aki at him. He's like, have a Viego, Assum. I got this one for you. And then Assum obviously just
I hope you like it.
Gets rinsed. Yeah, so bit of a weird one. But hey, 1-0-1. We take those. Haichao, just Assum going to be a little annoyed about the situation. So, 2-2 on the scoreboard. You know, Dagda, you asked for more kills. You've gained 4. Can you ask for more kills again? Because I'd like another one of those.
All right. Excuse me, Mr. Shadow, please. Can we make a play here? No.
No.
All right, well,
no is the answer,
screw
apparently.
me, I suppose, eh?
Yeah. Well, we've got a Herald coming up in just over a minute, so perhaps we'll see more action just there. There's a big damage onto Assum. This is one of the things about the new Zeri, where the W can crit. He's already got a shield bow finished off for Able, so we'll start to do a bit of damage if those Ws hit.
I do agree with you, though, with the Rift Herald coming up. I want to try and see a little bit more movement from LGD. Like at the moment, first Rift Herald, no contestation. Now they lose out on the first dragon as well without much in the way in contesting. Second dragon they do, but I mean now with this second Rift Herald up, I think if you just end up giving more of this gold over towards OMG, like you're just not going to be in a great spot. Even if they can even knock down the mid lane turret, it just makes things so much easier for OMG to like start to get vision control in this bot side, making sure that they're able to keep themselves in order for a third dragon, for fourth dragon. So for LGD, I think contesting this Rift Herald is actually going to be pretty key.
I can say that. It doesn't look like they're interested right now, and you know, they do have the big scaling, right, in the Azir and the Jinx, so perhaps just deciding that right now it's not worth trying to go for a 5v5 and instead might look towards his bottom side. As you can see, Assum already under the tower, but JinJiao and Shadow behind the tower right now. Obviously no plates on the map, so this would not be tower plates for Assum. It might be able to be a tower going in favor of Assum. The dive going to be decided against with Cold there. Too much Freljord under that tower to go for anything.
I just wanted to point out Haichao's build at the moment as well, because he is working up towards the Demonic Embrace. Actually, I'm going to hold on to that point for a second. Is OMG actually going to open up mid instantly with this push?
Yeah, understandable, right? Just getting the tower low enough for the Herald to finish this one off with a charge, and it just gives you so much space on the map to work with once that mid-tier 1 tower is gone. So you can anticipate OMG start to push their vision line a little deeper.
Alright, I thought, well, maybe hoped that LGD would respond to a little bit there, so that's why I paused, but we weren't lucky enough. But I got back to my point. Haichao, going for the Demonic Embrace. This is something that we see a lot, the Liandry's and the Demonic, and I'm actually not the biggest fan of it. Viego V2 has a really good video on it where he talks about, like, the actual damage that you get from this combo with the burn isn't that much, because you're, in theory, you do a lot of damage with the Liandry's burn and also having that Demonic Embrace burn, but it's not a huge amount. And although it will give you some tankiness from like things like burst because you got the Giant's Belt in and the Demonic Embrace, I don't feel like you need it in this scenario. So I honestly think going towards a more damage orientated build where you are going for things like the Shadow Flame and Void Staff and these kind of things would actually work out a lot better for Haichao in this scenario.
We'll see where he goes. Is Shadow trying to find a flank behind the dragon here. OMG group to remember this will be sole point for OMG if they can get hold of this dragon. But this time, LGD are on the scene in time for the play. They've been late every other dragon so far, but now they've managed to check their watches in advance of the alarm. They've woken up before they needed to be at school. But no dragon started just yet. We're just going to eye each other up. It's like the scenes in Wild West movies where they're going for a duel, but they're kind of just guns over the holsters for now. Dragon started. Here we go. Engage onto the backline here. Haichao is gone. See you later, buddy. Will be Drake taken by LGD, but I don't know if it's worth it at this point as they lose 2 members and maybe more. Assum getting dived underneath the tower here. Has to cleanse away from the slope. Towers don't do that much on this patch, remember. They got nerfed, and LGD are feeling that double kill for Code. The killer Braum making it happen.
Yeah, very messy fight from LGD. Haichao hugging that wall a little bit too close, thinking it was safe, but didn't know what was behind it. And OMG, they will lose that dragon, but they gain so much more in the gold. This is the first time we've actually seen a significant gold lead in this game, and it's 3.5k for OMG.
3.5k for OMG. Good spot to be in, and LGD now, they're kind of looking at the scoreboard. They're realizing they're falling pretty dramatically behind. At least they got that Drake. They bought themselves some time for this scaling comp, but they do have to really rely on this scaling and hope for a miracle. You see Creme moving up here. We're going to go to replay, so I'm going to assume nothing happens.
Yeah, I mean, look, you got Shanji here hiding over the wall, and Haichao just steps forward. And that's the thing, no vision, no real setup, and Haichao just hiding that bit close, just set up beautifully for it. And with the Azir down and the amount of pressure that was put on over towards the dragon, it's just a case for LGD of like how little can you lose on this play. And unfortunately, it was quite a lot with 4 members going down with the Mordekaiser losing his ult.
Haichao uses the Shurima Shuffle to try and get himself out, but I don't think that's happening. He's going to go down as the power of the Braum passive just wrecks him. And now we're starting to see trades across the map here. Rocket comes out to try and clear the way and deny a recall. Shanji can't go back, so it's a tier 1 at the top side. Assum trading it for a tier 1 in the mid lane though. And I think no, was the tower
I mean,
down
OMG just gonna keep going.
Remember.
Like, you need members back to defend your base, OMG. Like, I'm sorry, LGD. Like, OMG gonna take 2 towers off this push. And, I mean, I think LGD are gonna try and push mid, but Shanji has reset. You got Cold there as well, so you can't really answer. So, OMG winning out on the map, like.
Yeah, I mean, I get the idea from LGD, right? The rocket was there. They're like, we'll push mid tier 2. We'll just take 19 towers mid.
And the
then
rocket nearly did damage.
Well, I don't think the goal was damage, right? But yeah, like, oh, Cold actually predicting the flash there with the Q. That's kind of nice. You know, Hai Chao did flash literally on top of him, so that helped. But I think even if he'd flashed into the brush, that probably would have hit him. But either way, like, I feel like LGD were trying to say, yeah, we'll just race mid. Then suddenly they realized that we are not that far into the game. They have Jinx. They don't have that much damage.
And that's the thing, right? Like, for LGD, you are still waiting on a good amount of scaling. But for OMG, you're in a bit of a better spot. Like, Zeri comes online at the moment, and OMG looking to abuse us.
Yeah. Fearness feeling that abuse. Although, time for a 1v1, baby. Welcome to the death realm. Fearness just going to get bodied, though, because Shanji had a lot more HP than he did. 0-0-8 for the top lane of OMG. Having a great game on this Sejuani and just tanky enough to beat out that Mordekaiser.
And this is what I was just saying, is that, like, you've got Abel, who's in a great spot, able to facilitate that play in the bot side, and Creme kind of showing how much damage he can do in the replay in the bottom right corner as well. Like, this is a composition for OMG that has decent scaling, but also just comes online that little bit sooner. And the fact that they have a 5k gold lead, you've got 2 dragons as well with the next dragon in a minute, it's going to be real difficult for LGD to actually form any sort of response here, because realistically you want a 3rd item on your Azir, you want this Infinity Edge completed for Assum, like, you want more items before LGD really come online.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of need more in your arsenal right now, but then 40 seconds till another Drake. I'm curious if LGD fight this one, honestly. I could imagine a world where they go, look, we've not got 3 items on Jinx, we're only 2 items on the Azir. Maybe we just accept that in 5 minutes, we probably have we probably have IE for Assum. We probably have enough damage on the Azir to go for a 5v5. So maybe just fight once the soul is actually onto the map.
Well, already we're getting the contestation here. LGD try to see if they can use some of that range that they have with the Jinx and the Azir to find some poke, but I mean, you still got to be careful of Abel's damage. Creme as well, going to have a good amount of range if he can land some of these lasers as well. But LGD backing away. Dragon set up by OMG. LGD try to bait the Baron, but I don't know if they can really go towards that.
Yeah, I'm not convinced on that one, especially with this version of Azir. Like, it's not like you got crazy attack speed or anything like that to be able to just burn through a Baron. So just going to be vision cleared by LGD. As they accept that they're not going to contest this one. Honestly, though, I agree with the decision not to contest. Like, I don't think that's a fight that they win in any scenario. Like, if they don't have the damage to get through the Sejuani, they're not going to be able to threaten Abel on the back line. Like, that felt like a hopeless fight to me for LGD, so I think just accept that you don't get the Drake is fine.
Yeah, and you can see they tried to trade that for position on Baron, but they don't actually get any of the vision control in River. They didn't get any of the picks on OMG, as well as OMG tried to establish their own vision on this top side. So it definitely feels like for LGD, the trades for Dragon could have been a bit more valuable, but not quite able to do so. And now you look at the amount of wards OMG have gotten in this top side, although JinJiao is clearing out a little bit of that as LGD come off the reset.
Yeah, a little bit of it, but still a lot of control here for OMG, and it's difficult for JinJiao to actually push any deeper by himself, right? Like, you don't know exactly where everyone is, and you assume that the resets have come on through, but we've all seen those games in LPL where people pretend to reset and then look for picks instead. So wise by JinJiao to play it safe until he's got more teammates alongside him. LGD can continue to scale up. And, you know, I was talking about the IE getting closer for Assum. He's actually not gone for the IE yet. Going for that last whisper. Head towards the Lord Dominic's regarding the crit cloak in inventory as well. But I'm going to hold that thought. As Anki tries to make a play on the bottom side, but JinJiao goes in mid lane, gets knocked up by Cold. That's going to be all that happens mid lane.
Alright, here we go. The 1v1 take 2.
Yeah, onto Aki this time, and flashing forwards for it. The rocket is optimistic. It's a little too early, unfortunately, but Fearness does get the kill. 2v1 here, and actually Shanji's completely out of mana. There's a TP coming in. LGD are actually winning the play. Shanji trying to escape now, but he's got no HP, he's got no mana, and now he's got no life either. Well, let's be honest, he's a League of Legends pro. That was already the case. But now up towards the Baron, potentially.
The man, the myth, the Mordekaiser, Fearness, fighting the 2v1 and absolutely killing it. And now, as you can see, you've got push on bot side. I think they could have stuck around, honestly, for the Terror, because you still have, like, Zeri in mid. Might have been able to take it a little bit more, but I mean, the fact that Fearness is now having this much control in the side lane, getting some time for LGD to push out waves, get tempo back in the favor, is actually super nice. And we'll see it here. I think great call from Fearness. Like, Aki has a ton of damage, but realistically won't survive the amount that Fearness can churn out as well. Flashing forward to make sure he lands the ultimate as well. And I mean, Fearness there, just able to knock him down where he stands. And then from this point forward, Shanji's like, well, I'm completely out of mana. I have members of LGD on the way. Like, there is no hope for him in this play.
I will say, the rocket there coming out from the Jinx, that was damn close. Like, I don't think I've ever seen anyone time a Mordekaiser ult like that. Like, you know, you time rockets for Zhonya's and stuff. Assum was trying to time the Mordekaiser ult, and he was like a quarter of a second out.
I will say, I've definitely tried to time it. I've never quite timed it well, though. I think that's the difference.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. I'm not saying nobody's ever tried. I'm just being like, I've never seen that pulled off, you know? I've never seen someone pre-fire from Mordekaiser ult in pro play. Assum getting damn close to pulling it off, though. It's so point, though, remember, for OMG. And the next Drake coming up in 1 minute and 20 seconds. And Dagda, it feels like we're coming to a boiling point in this one. And I think that Drake fight might decide a lot.
Yeah, I feel like for OMG, though, maybe don't try and contest this. I know it is Soul, but you don't really have push in the map. There's a ton of vision control established for LGD in the bot side. I think your best bet is to try and trade it for Baron positioning and see if you can bait LGD into you. Because if you're walking into Braum, Sejuani, even Viktor, like, there's so much that you can do there.
Certainly is. But we'll see if they can actually make that scenario occur, right? If they can get themselves into that position. Cremes were finished for Assum now. And this is one of the powers of Azir, right? Just being able to infinitely buy yourself priority in that mid lane, thanks to the Azir passive. Damage down onto Creme as well. Zaki tries to move in, but LGD feel like they have control of the situation this time. This is the first time this game, honestly, where it's felt like LGD have control, but an aggressive engage and huge damage coming out from Abel and Creme there, with a combination of the laser as well as the Chaos Storm, but that's some big cooldowns used.
Yeah, and that's why LGD kind of scrambling here to see if they can get some poke down, but you do be careful, because as you can see, Abel has a good response there with his own zap alongside the Jinx, so LGD stepping forward.
Oh, Fearness just going to get 2 pulls on the Mordekaiser. Not usually a hard engaged champ, but I guess he is today. Shadow, though, went way too deep. Gets annihilated by himself. Cold finally full spins to the 2v1, but Assum and Haichao, nobody to protect them. Haichao goes for a cheeky little Shurima shuffle, but it ain't gonna be enough, and Abel's here to clean the fight up. And OMG get a clear house on this one. An ace coming through, and a soul as well.
Yeah, I think target selection from LGD come really off in that fight, and it means that OMG are able to find the soul. They should be able to find the Baron potentially as well with where they're moving, but we're watching the replay here. Fearness decides to ult Cole, which I think is a really bad idea, because you're taking a not really a big champion out of the fight here, but you're denying the front line for LGD, especially as Shadow goes forward here. JinJiao is not a tank. He's not strong enough to actually, as you can see, deal with Abel. So the rest of OMG are just able to dive forward, win the fight, and by the time Fearness comes out, it's already too little too late. The damage is done. Haichao and Assum are just dead.
Yeah, huge damage. It felt like Shadow didn't factor in the fact that Fearness was going to go into the death realm there. You know, he's like, I'm here with my top laner. And then turns around, he's like, wait, where's my top laner? It just gets killed instead. Bit of a disaster coming out from LGD. And now, you know, they've been behind all game, Dagda. Now they're in struggle city. Like, look at the Dragons going in favor of OMG. Huge gold lead their way as well. And now with a Baron in their pocket too, OMG can just rack things up. What is that damage from the Ultra Shock Laser? Abel just annihilating Shadow.
I mean, there's so much damage that this W from Zeri can do now, and OMG with that poke down, now going to be able to push in and get this tier 2 in bot. Like, this game is pretty much done for here for LGD. One of the big advantages that they had was maybe a little bit of range they could have used with Haichao and Assum, but the Soul and the 2 Ocean Dragons basically negate that. You've got OMG as well, who have just hit their 3-4 items here for Abel as well. They're incredibly strong, and there's just very little that OMG can really respond. Or sorry, LGD can really respond.
Dagda, is it me? Oh, hang on, Shadow. Tries to go in, but just gets knocked up and stunned by Cold. Oh, he's got a shield. Can he lift this one? Empress Defied. Shadow dodging the Chaos Storm. Oh, my days. Some fancy footwork. He will live through it. Haichao dodges the stun as Shanji goes forward. I mean, he's invincible. Nobody can hurt him at this point, so it's a kill onto JinJiao. And OMG, with one pick, that should be enough to open this base up in the mid lane. They can move over towards the bottom side if they want to as well. With that Ocean Soul, they can keep this fight going all day long. Creme keeping the distance against Fearness in that death realm. He's not even been hit by Fearness. He's just slowly but surely chipping away at him. There's the rest of the team in the land of the living. And they're making sure that LGD aren't at this rate. The flail comes out onto Shadow. Haichao will fall. A stun there onto Shadow as well as he has to ward hop onto his own fountain. And that'll be OMG looking good in game 1.
Yeah, it was a slow, drawn-out game, but OMG shown they're happy to play in towards the later portion of the game. Better mid-game control, better team fighting, and OMG come out on top.
Really nicely done here by OMG, and a pleasant surprise to see, you know, quiet, confident macro plays. You know, like we saw them training towers effectively. We saw them playing well on the map versus where Shadow was currently. Like, my expectation of OMG is not like smart macro trades, right? It's go for a scrappy comp, find a 5v5, get a lead from that, right? And this did feel like somewhat of a different style. A lot of that was LGD opting out of these fights, but ultimately, OMG managing to find that win for themselves and managing to punish LGD for not being aggressive enough.
Yeah, and I think that's the big one, is like you're kind of looking at the early neutral objectives going so heavily in favor of OMG made it a lot easier for them to kind of stall the game out. Even just the fact that they spiked slightly earlier with their composition, because as we said, like Jinx, Azir both really want 3 items, and possibly even 4 realistically for the Azir with the build that he went for. Whereas when you look across at Zeri, she does very well with the Immortal Shield Bow and a Phantom Dancer. The Viktor, when he gets his Leandries and his Void Staff, like these are kind of the 2 big ticket items you need to get the ball rolling for these champions. And you can see there that when we got to 3rd, 4th dragon, where OMG had already collected the initial dragons, it made it so easy for them to find the victories in these fights.
Yeah, absolutely. Tough one for LGD, but for OMG, felt good, right? Coordinated, had a good way of starting fights, a good way to follow up on the rest of it as well. And they had a Zeri that was strong, and man, was that Zeri doing damage. Abel just, like, half-healthing Shadow with a singular laser there. It was absolutely mental to watch. But an impressive performance nonetheless from OMG. The question, though, Dagda, is can they do it twice in a row? Because neither of these teams has been consistent so far this split. We got excited about LGD because they got that win, but ultimately they do only have 1 series win on the board. And this game did not feel like they were playing the same style as what we saw from them. OMG, on the other hand, you know, they've got a win on the board. It was their most recent series, but they've also got 3 losses on the board. Like, we haven't seen any consistency out of either of these teams. So the rest of this series, for me, is like opportunity for OMG to prove that they can be consistent, that they can get back-to-back wins.
Yeah, I will say I think the draft was a little bit thrown out the window by LGD. Like, the fact you're opting in towards the Lee Sin Nautilus on first rotation on red side, it's just not 2 very strong picks. Like, I can understand Shadow wanting to get the counter pick against the Viego, but, you know, this Nautilus, not exactly a major factor in this game. Very easily countered with the Braum. And the fact you're giving that up for the likes of the Zeri just isn't worth it at all. As you can see there for the KDA, 6-1 and 8 for Abel, like 82% kill participation. It was so easy for them to play around Abel on this area. And we already talked about it in the opening of the day. Like, Abel is best suited on these short range carries where he's able to move around. He's got a ton of dashes. Like, he's very good at trying to play with that short range. And they kind of just handed him the best pick in that style.
Yeah, felt like he had absolutely everything he could have wanted for the fights, for the game. And basically no one to threaten him either, right? In the middle of all of those fights, LGD are trying to peel back. Nobody's actually like getting on him. Nobody's able to stop him. Just take it over. And that means